What's up, ATH, and welcome to episode 3 of Becoming an All-Terrain Human. And in this video, we are going to talk about strengthening your hip flexors to make your hip flexors more flexible. How is that possible, you ask? Well, today you're going to find out. All right, so if some trainer or practitioner or guru has told you that you have tight hip flexors, or even if you think you have tight hip flexors, then this video is for you. We're gonna start by talking about who needs to strengthen their hip flexors to make them looser, because some people actually need to stretch them. And then if you are somebody who needs to do that, we're gonna start off with 3 strengthening exercises you can do today. But first, before we show you those exercises, click the subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you do not miss a single episode of Becoming an All-Terrain Human. So let's talk about who needs to strengthen their psoas and those hip flexors in order to make them more loose. So not everyone needs to strengthen their psoas. Most of you, everyone should probably do it at least once a week just for maintenance, but some of you need it more than others to actually get some release in those hip flexors. So let's go over mechanics real quick. I'm gonna give you a test. So most of the hip flexors bring that knee up to 90 degrees, but there's only one, the psoas, that brings that knee up past 90 degrees. So we get that knee up past the hip. So this is your first test to tell whether or not you need to strengthen that hip flexor. So if you can't do that, you may find yourself that you are in this overextended position. And so when we're in this overextended position, this is automatically lengthening that psoas, which in turn turns it off. And then after a while, if you do a lot of sitting and you stand up and you're always overextended like this, it just tends to get weak, okay? So that is two ways to tell if you need to strengthen it. And then let's give you a few more. So most people, when they don't have adequate hip flexor strength, they tend to swing their leg out and around when they're stepping up and over objects instead of actually getting full, true hip flexion. So staying straight in line with the hip, pulling up and over. And better yet, for true deep hip flexion, if you do box jumps, and if you're a person who does box jumps and you have to swing your leg out and around to get on top of that box jump, instead of pulling that leg up in hip flexion, which is getting past that 90 degrees, right? When we get onto a big box jump, we're getting up past 90 degrees. If you can't do that and you have to swing around, more often than not, you need to strengthen those hip flexors. And if you're anyone who has a few of those points, you're missing a few of those points of performance, more often than not, you need to get some more strength in those hip flexors so you can finally make them loose.
Exercise 1, the modified straight leg raise. This is a basic bodyweight hip flexor exercise that's going to help prepare the psoas for more advanced exercises later on.
All right, our first exercise today is going to teach the hip flexors how to start moving correctly. So if you're somebody who does core work, right? If you're thinking core work or you're doing leg raises and you get the clicking pain, that usually means, or just clicking, usually means that you need to get some stronger hip flexors. So let's give you some progressions to get rolling, and we'll eventually give you some more advanced exercises in this video. So first thing you're gonna do, foam roller on the ground, and then what you're going to do, lay down on your back like so, and you're gonna get your Achilles on that foam roller. So we're on the back of the heel, right on that Achilles. And so most of the times, if you have weak hip flexors, they're not gonna be ready for the down portion of leg raises. So for this first move is our modified leg raise. So she's going to raise one leg up, curl that foot back down, and then bring it back onto the roller. So you're gonna start off, try this out. If that feels okay, then you're gonna go ahead into a straight leg raise, up and down. So most of you, if you do have weak hip flexors, you might feel that clicking pain as you go back down. You might feel that click in the front of the hip, usually means it's weak. Or also if you're weak in the hip flexors or the hip flexors are in that extended position, you more often than not can't keep that lower spine flat. So we don't have that motor control to keep that lower spine flat. So that's what this foam roller helps do, is put that core in a nice neutral position. So whichever progression you're gonna do today, I want you to do 2 sets of 10. Try that out and get ready for the next exercise.
Exercise 2, Flexor pulls. These require a band and demand a stronger contraction from your psoas. Now that we're strengthening above 90 degrees, we're really going to start to strengthen and loosen those hip flexors.
So exercise 2 is the flexor pull. For this one, we have a very light jump stretch band. It's the short one. You can find it on Amazon for very cheap. As minimal resistance as you can for the first go around of this exercise. So for these flexor pulls, you're going to take this, you're going to put it over top of your feet, you're going to get back down into that prone position. And before we actually do the exercise, this one we need to go over points of performance before we get into it. So she's going to lay down. Then once we're here, hopefully we are strong enough now, we've done enough of the modified straight leg raise that we can keep this that lower back nice and flat. So she's going to get her feet out straight. And so if we can keep it nice and flat, from there we're going to just pull one leg up into this deep hip flexion. So we have this other leg keeping it down. The band is over the tops of our feet. And like we talked about, we want to work this deep hip flexion, getting that knee past the hip, right? If we only get here, we're not getting that end range of the iliopsoas, and we're not gonna help it get stronger, which will in turn allow everything to get looser. So go ahead, you're gonna do 2 sets of 10. And just to reiterate, if you can't get up past 90, more often than not, you feel tight hip flexors because these hip flexors are shortening in compensation for the elongating of that iliopsoas. So give that a whirl, 2 sets of 10.
Exercise 3, a little bit different here, flexor push pulls. These are the next step after flexor pulls. With your feet suspended in the air, you're really going to challenge your core even more to not go into that overextended position. And that's going to carry over to better spinal position in your lifts and in your posture.
All right, exercise 3 is the flexor push pull. This is a more advanced version than the flexor pull. It's going to challenge that core even more. So same thing, same band. Go ahead, get onto the ground. Same thing, band over top the feet. Core is nice and flat, lower spine is nice and flat. Now we're going to lift the legs up off the ground, and now we're going to push and pull. So the other leg is pushing out, while the other one is pulling up, and then we transition at the same time. So we're not gonna push the one foot out, meet, and then pull the other one up. We wanna transition and keep tension on that band the entire time. So what this does is now we have more weight out on our feet because our feet are elevated, which is going to incline you to lift that lower spine off the ground and get into that overextended position again. So if this exercise makes you do that, you need to go back to your flexor pull or your modified straight leg raise to eventually keep that core control and that lower spine nice and flat. And once we can do this, we can get this knee actively above 90 with some resistance, and we can keep that core nice and flat. We know our spine is in a better and healthier position for all things that we do. Lifting, running, standing, walking, you name it, the spine is going to be in a better position. Go ahead, same thing, 2 sets of 10, give that a whirl. So if you're somebody who identified themselves as needing to swing their leg around to step over an object or kick those feet out wide to jump up on a box, then give those exercises a whirl. They are going to strengthen those hip flexors so you can increase your performance in the gym and increase the longevity of your body and your hips for a lifetime. And like I said earlier, don't forget to click subscribe so you do not miss a single episode of Becoming an All-Terrain Human. Lastly, leave us a comment. Let us know if you have tight hip flexors and give us a thumbs up if you like this video. And until next time, go out there and continue to make the world your playground.